The Vivo V15 Pro is a mid-range smartphone with a completely bezel-less screen, a pop-up selfie camera and a triple camera setup at the rear. It has a 6.39-inch Super AMOLED screen with full HD+ resolution and an in-display fingerprint reader and no bezels at all. It is powered by the octa-core Snapdragon 675 chipset along with 8GB of RAM. As far as the cameras are concerned, there is a 48-megapixel camera on the rear combined with a 8-megapixel camera and a 5-megapixel depth sensor. The 32-megapixel pop-up selfie camera also captures nice selfies with good color reproduction and sharpness. This device runs FunTouch 9 based on Android 9 Pie. It is powered by a 4000 mAh battery with 18 watt of fast battery charging support. The Oppo R17 Pro sports a 6.4-inch display with a water drop notch and has an in-display fingerprint scanner. This phone has a Qualcomm Snapdragon 710 chipset along with 8GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. This phone has a dual camera setup consisting of a 12-megapixel primary and a 20-megapixel secondary sensor. It also has a 3D sensor which helps it for 3D scanning. It has a 25-megapixel selfie camera. Oppo R17 Pro runs ColorOS 5.2 based on Android 8.1 Oreo. It has two 1850 mAh batteries, totaling the capacity to 3700 mAh, which supports fast charging. The Redmi K20 Pro comes with a 6.39-inch Full HD Plus AMOLED screen of 2340 by 1080p resolution. It has an aspect ratio of 19.5 by 9 and 91% screen-to-body ratio. The display also houses an in-screen fingerprint sensor. Powered by Qualcomm Snapdragon 855 processor with Adreno 640 GPU, the Redmi K20 Pro also comes with Game Turbo 2.0, which is also said to optimize the handset for better gaming experience. On the imaging front, the Redmi K20 Pro has a triple rear camera setup that includes a 48-megapixel Sony IMX586 camera with a 1.75 aperture, an 8-megapixel telephoto sensor with 2.4 aperture and a 13-megapixel wide-angle sensor with 2.5 aperture. For selfie lovers, there is a 20-megapixel sensor housed in a pop-up setup with a wide-angle mode. The front camera is claimed to pop out in 0.8 seconds. Overall, it's not a bad phone at all. The A70 is good enough to justify its mid-range price tag, and soon you will know why. The Galaxy A70 is actually similar to the Galaxy A50 and follows the same 3D glass-stick design language, where the glass-stick stands for glass-like plastic. With a 6.7-inch Infinity UI screen on the front, the phone is not the most compact option available in the market, but it is still surprisingly manageable. The polycarbonate body with all the curves in the right places makes the phone feel sleek and relatively light in the hands. On the rear, the Galaxy A70 stacks a 32-megapixel with 1.7 aperture primary sensor, 8-megapixel wide-angle shooter and a 5-megapixel depth sensor. As for the selfies, the Galaxy A70 uses the same 32-megapixel sensor on the front as well. There's Scene Optimizer, Live Focus Portrait Mode, Flaw Detection and many more options on the phone. Samsung has included 240 FPS slow-mos at 1080p, which should be fun to play around. The Qualcomm Snapdragon 675 SoC is currently placed into Galaxy A70. Samsung has paired 2GHz octa-core chipset with 6GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. There is a dedicated microSD card slot that can hold additional 512GB storage. It can handle demanding games, offers great battery life, has super fast charging and the full version of Samsung Pay that lets you go card free. Huawei Nova 5 smartphone was launched on 21st June 2019. The phone comes with a 6.39-inch touchscreen display with a resolution of 1080 by 2340 pixels at a pixel density of 403 pixels per inch and an aspect ratio of 19.5 by 9. Huawei Nova 5 is powered by a 1.88 GHz octa-core high silicon Kirin 810 processor that features 2 cores clocked at 2.27 GHz and 6 cores clocked at 1.88 GHz. It comes with 8GB of RAM. The Huawei Nova 5 runs Android 9 Pie and is powered by 3500 mAh battery. The Huawei Nova 5 supports proprietary fast charging. As far as the cameras are concerned, the Huawei Nova 5 on the rear packs a 48 megapixel primary camera with an 1.8 aperture, a second 16 megapixel camera with an 2.2 aperture, and a third 2 megapixel camera with an 2.4 aperture. And there is a fourth 2 megapixel camera with an 2.4 aperture. The rear camera setup has laser autofocus. It sports a 32 megapixel camera on the front for selfies with an 2.0 aperture. The Huawei Nova 5 runs EMUI based on Android 9 Pie and packs 128 GB of inbuilt storage that can be expanded via microSD card up to 256 GB. The Huawei Nova 5 is a dual SIM smartphone that accepts nano SIM and micro SIM cards. In today's competitive phone market, the Nova needs to be cheaper, but it's a fine device with no big drawbacks.